Hello and welcome to Canada's final match of the World Cup 2018 against the Netherlands. We have amoffett11 against Philip. So I chose to highlight this match because my initial impression of this match was that, well, there's nothing to do here. You just pick up a few sacred groves and dungeons and buy provinces. But Philip actually comes up with a slightly different idea on this board. So let's sit back, enjoy, and have a look at what Philip comes up with. So the opening looks like Dungeon and Silver, just to get your grove down as quickly as possible. Not down, but bought is what I mean. Night Watchman could come into play. Aim off it goes for Silver Night Watchman here. Night Watchman is nice because you can discard any number of cards and decide what you want to do from there. So Philip goes for the Dungeon and Silver, which I probably would have opened with. Searching for 5. Moffat gets to his 5. Again, the Night Watchman definitely helped with that. And another dungeon here for Philip. So out comes the Sacred Grove here. And we'll see where A. Moffat is going to take this game. So there's King's Court on the board, but there isn't draw. Or so I thought, anyway. Or so I thought. Or so I thought. So, um, yeah, so A. Moffat is going for trade here, which is what I was seeing on the board, right? Look, you could trade away a couple to silvers, you could play with a couple of sacred groves, hit the provinces, move on to game 4. This is game 3, by the way, and the score is 2-0 in favor of the Netherlands. As I mentioned in the previous video, this match actually does not matter entirely because the Netherlands have already qualified for the quarterfinals at this stage of the competition. So Philip goes for the King's Court, and I was a bit skeptical of the King's Court, especially here. He drew it dead, and I was thinking, that's what happens when you buy King's Court and there's not a lot of action cards in your deck. I think he just has a couple dungeons and one Sacred Grove. So he did draw it dead and he discarded it there, but I mean, whatever, right? Maybe it'll collide with the Sacred Grove, I imagine, is what he would like that to collide with later on in the game. So he goes for another dungeon here. There's 3 dungeons for him. And I imagine aim of it is just going to continue purchase and trade when he can't purchase province, maybe a gold or 2, and that should be sufficient. It was sufficient in my head. Gets rid of the Night Watchman there, obviously doesn't want to trigger a shuffle with a dungeon and a grove out of it. Although that being said, he did trash the overgrown estate there, so maybe he had other ideas with discarding the Night Watchman there. So a couple of things for the Sacred Grove have come out so far. The river now is the earth here. I think Philip does make use of this, perhaps to pick up another dungeon. Aim off it takes the boon actually and picks up a dungeon. Philip doesn't do anything with it. He wanted all his money to pick up another King's Court then. So he has a couple of those. Again, maybe it won't come with anything in hand, and it doesn't here. Just a King's Court and a hovel and a bunch of money. So he gets rid of those 2 things. He picks up a second Sacred Grove. In the meantime, A. Moffat here has a deck full of silver and looks like he's ready to province off. At this point, I still haven't cottoned on to what Philip is doing. It might be clear to you what he's doing, but it's not clear to me at all. So this is what he's looking for, right? King's Court on Sacred Grove. You get 9 coins straight away. 9 coins guaranteed. And you may get other nice things. Of course, you might give your opponent the other nice things, but as he shows in this game here, I think it's more beneficial still for you to play the Grove and potentially give your opponent one of the boons and also make use of it for yourself. Because if you both make use of it, it kinda is neutral. I'm not entirely sure about that. And here he goes for a villa. And I was very confused by this villa. Very, very confused. Why would you? There's no reason to buy a villa here. None whatsoever. You have no terminals. King in a villa isn't spectacular. Why would you buy the villa? Why, Philip? Why? Another King's Court for him. So he's committing hard to the King's Court thing. Can give him that for sure. A wisp here. And Philip does take the wisp here. And that is actually very important. He makes very, very good use of the boons throughout this game. Another province for a Moffat. So he's looking good there. Another one in hand as well. And Philip does come up with king on Sacred Grove. So the mountain comes out giving silvers. The field comes out, which only Philip gets, and a forest as well. So that's two extra coins and an extra buy, which is whatever. But it does put him at 14, and he does stop and think here. If he continues along with what he's doing, perhaps doubles King's Court is an option. But he goes for something a bit different. He goes for King's Court Night Watchman. Notice he hasn't trashed anything with trade from his deck. He has not trashed anything from his deck with trade. So he still has all 7 coppers and all 3 shelters, unlike A. Moffat, who has managed to remove a few of those starting cards from his deck. And here's where you see things start to unfold a bit more nicely for Philip. So he manages to find the king on the Will-O-Wisp. So this is what I was alluding to when I said I thought there was no draw on the board, but king on Will-O-Wisp draws. It actually draws at least one card. If your Will-O-Wisp fires, you get an extra card off of it, and you have 3 opportunities in a deck with 7 coppers, 3 shelters. You know, it might draw. It might draw more than the 1 card with the King's Court. So that is very nice for him, I imagine. Very, very nice for him. He does King uh, a Sacred Grove, a dungeon, and then another Sacred Grove. So he's really raiding the boons here, but that's good for him. Another Wisp, right? Another Wisp. So he has 2 Wisps. So does Amoffett, but Amoffett doesn't have the King and the Wisp, whereas Philip does. And you see here, look, 22 and 10 buys. That is impressive. That is very impressive on our board, for me anyway, where I thought nothing was going on. And here he tips his hat, Philip. Here I realize, oh, this is what you're doing. King's Court, double Fairgrounds, and a beggar. Philip is going after the Fairgrounds. He probably assessed at the beginning of the game that 8-point Fairgrounds are possible on this board. There are shelters. Once you have shelters, I think you're guaranteed to have 8-point Fairgrounds. Of course, you'd have to purchase one of everything to get them there, but there's also a couple extra cards on the board. There's spoils and there's wisps, and wisps are something you would not mind in your deck at all, especially if you're playing the way Philip is playing. It's an excellent target for king. What I noticed that he did here as well is that at every turn from this point on, he would at least king a dungeon and have that in play. Very important for him considering that he has not trashed. He needs to be able to try to set up that king and that wisp, or king, king, grove, 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 or something like that. Something like that. So that was the point of the villa earlier. The single night watchman showed help here. This is the point of the armory. It's just to build up the fairgrounds points towards that massive 8-point mark. It's not there yet. They're just at 6 points, so just as good as provinces. But if you give him enough time, he can probably get it to 8-point fairgrounds, which is very, very intimidating, very scary for a Moffat. So he goes for another pair of fairgrounds here, trying to green and keep up with A Moffat. He realizes at this point, look, A Moffat's deck is probably going to hit province a turn from here on out, so he needs to score to try to stay within striking distance of him. 15 is not quite 16. I'm sure A Moffat would have liked 16 there, but he's just going to pick up a province and a duchy here, I believe. Maybe he could have considered a fairgrounds at this juncture. 1 less for Philip, 1 for A Moffat. They'll probably be worth 4 points for him. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't counted, but he did pick up a beggar at some point. Probably, I'm thinking about the fairground somewhere uh, down the road. But he goes for Duchy instead, which is fine. Philip, I mean, we saw Philip come up with what, 22 and some number of buys last time. It's not crazy to think that he could get up to 24 here, but he doesn't find any wisps. But he will manage to get 6 groves played this turn, which is very, very good for him. Again, that's off the bat $18, potentially more, depending on the boon. And the grove can't draw. It can act like a dungeon. It could act like it could give you one card from the river. There's the river, for instance. Oh, but that's at the end of the turn. But so never mind. Anyways, he doesn't quite get 24, but he gets to 19. Triple Fairground seems pretty safe for him there, but he chooses to pick up a Night Watchman just to set up his next hand and a couple Fairgrounds alongside a Silk Road, I believe. Alongside a Silk Road starting the green quite heavily at this point. So he's actually now overtaken Amoffett here. He does manage to pick up a province, Amoffett, and get his Night Watchman into play with 16. Way too easy for Philip's deck, as he's demonstrated time and time again. So he is going to be able to find enough money here, I think, to pick up the last two provinces. Doesn't look so from his hand, honestly. Maybe on the next turn he'll have the money to do so. Um, Not entirely sure. But he does end up winning this match. Yeah, just enough for a single fairgrounds. Two provinces is very difficult for A Moffat. Very safe to leave the game in that state for Philip. And he will finish it next turn with his three King's Courts in his hand there. So very nicely done by Philip. I did not at all consider Fairgrounds, think about the boons in the way that he thought about it, using it as a proper gainer. He used the Sacred Grove to gain wisps for him. He gained silvers to make up his Fairgrounds count, gold as well to make up his Fairgrounds count, used it for draw, used it for gain through the forest or whatever. Very, very good milking or use of the boons here I found, and just pressing home that powerful um, fairgrounds, potentially up to 8 points. I don't think he manages to get it all the way up to 8, but I mean, it was well within the realm of possibility for him. So very nicely done by Philip here, and I thought you all might like to see this. So thank you for watching, and